All right, all right, all right, all right. One sec. Yes. All right, I'm here. I did a quick promo on IG just to let people know that I'm going live right now. Let me just add a caption so they can join us right now. Join us right now. Bang. Just in case someone wants to join. I'm going to share that real quick. Up on IG. Every time I do that, I do see some people from IG coming in to join us. So, MFB coming in on YouTube. I see you. Salute. DJ Peace Up. Peace Up 1 was good on Twitch. So, I'm going to wait for the people to come in. Oh, damn. I can see my own face. Right there in the corner. Makes me want to go move that. Now, I'm going to leave it. Easy Mike D in the building. Salute. What's going on? Welcome to the Share the Knowledge podcast, Share the Knowledge live stream. Hashtag Share the Knowledge. And for those who don't know, that is basically my slogan for my platform, DJ TLM TV. This is all about helping each other become better DJs and also just gaining some knowledge. And of course, I have close to 30 years of DJ experience. I share my experience, but that's strictly from my viewpoint and from what I've personally experienced or heard from colleagues. But I also know that I can learn a lot from all of you from all over the globe. That's why I love doing this show. We got DJ Scratch Angel coming in from Cameroon. Salute on Facebook. I see you. We got DJ Pedrino in the building. Mo Barry, good day to you. We got Hip Hop Superman. Yes, I'm back indeed. And we got DJ Easy Mixmaster. Bless up. And we got Lyric. What's that? Lyric Eccentric. I see you. Jay Valeria was good. What up, man? And we got George Coleman in the building as well. So join us. Come on in. I'm going to see if everything is working. Mixcloud is up. Yes. I already saw YouTube was up, if I'm not mistaken. Let me refresh that. Yes. So we should be good on all of those platforms. On the one hand, I would like to add Instagram, and I know there's options to do that. I could add Instagram through a service like Yellow Duck, so I could use my Restream to go to all the platforms, send that to Yellow Duck, and that could send it to IG, so that they have this same the same quality instead of me doing it from my phone. The only problem is I love using my Restream chat app to see all of the chat in one place. DJ Six, salute, welcome. And Who Ate My Sandwiches in the building, I see you as well. So I can see Twitch, Facebook, YouTube. I can see all of that in one spot. The problem with IG is I can't see the Instagram stuff here. So I would have to look up on my phone, and I don't really like that workflow. So maybe in the near future, I'll just do a special separate Instagram live. That will be better. So I'll only have to focus on that. Swamp Thing, yes, indeed, we're back. And I don't know who tuned in on Sunday, but on Sunday I decided I decided to do this on Saturday. I didn't have any songs selected for the Sunday sessions, and I came across a post that Rap Caviar, that's one of the playlists on Spotify, they made a top 50 greatest hip-hop beats of all time list for hip-hop's 50th birthday. And I was like, you know what? I'm not going to look for tracks for this Sunday session. I'm just going to take this top 50 and play that in the actual order, starting at number 50, going all the way down to number 1. That was a lot of fun to do. A little bit tricky, though, because when you have a bunch of songs and you have an order you have to play them in, you're going to run into issues that I had a track that was maybe 70 BPM, but the next one is 95, and the next one is 80, and then there's 102. So you can't really mix. Plus, the styles were really different. So I didn't do a lot of mixing, mostly playing. But it was fun. It was also fun just to check the tracks. And I already read that list. And reading a list is one thing. And yes, I know like most of the tracks on that list I knew. And I found out that the two titles that I didn't recognize when I heard the songs, I knew them as well. But listening to the songs is different. And I was able to form my opinion. And the one thing I know for sure is I would not be able to make a top 50 greatest hip hop beats list. I also know that I wouldn't agree with this list. But then again, I did not see any information where they said how they decided to make this list. What was like the criteria to come to this conclusion? Because in some cases, I believe that it's actually the song, because there were a lot of like powerful songs in there that I know that if you play at a quote unquote real hip hop party, those are some of the classics. Are the beats also that great, or is it the totality of it? You know, sometimes we have a special feeling when it comes to a song, and it's not specifically the beat, but the entire song. But yeah, man, it was fun. I used the Flex 10 again, but this time I used it with Serato. So last week on Sunday, I did a set with the Flex 10 with Record Box, which was cool, but I did not like using the stems with Record Box. And this was a better experience using the Flex 10 with Serato. The stems sound a lot better. I had all my samples loaded in there for the radio jingles. So better experience overall. But I have to say, I did feel a little bit of that Q drift again. So I don't know what it is with the jog wheels, but something about the jog wheels, when I don't apply the right pressure, sometimes I lose the sound a little bit, which I don't have on other controllers. So I don't know what that is. All right. DJ Hey Official, San Diego in the building. And Scratch Angel wants to know, is it possible to use pitch and time on the DDJ Rev 1? If yes, how to set it all up? I would guess yes, because pitch and time is not something you use on the controller. It's something you set in Serato. So if you have Serato DJ Pro and you have the pitch and time extension, then it should work with whatever controller you're using. That's what I assume. And I know assumption is not always that great. I've used it with the Rev 1. I cannot remember now because the set that I did with the Rev 1, that was like 7 months ago. So I don't know. But if I had to imagine, I would say you should be able to use that because it's a feature inside Serato. It's not a feature on the controller. Jordan, yes. So no, I this is the third Share the Knowledge. So that's the third week since I've been back on YouTube. I've been doing music streams for a couple of months now again, but I don't do those on my YouTube channel. So I do those on Twitch, on Mixcloud, and I added a kick to that, and on Twitter. So that's probably why. Mixmaster G is here as well in a bit of a lurking mode. But if we have any specific questions, Mixmaster G is here. So especially if you have questions about maybe converting playlists from your DJ software to other DJ software, Mixmaster G is the expert there. But he's actually an expert in a lot more when it comes to this whole tech, software, hardware, DJ stuff. So good to see y'all as well. DJ Pep says, I like to use my laptop with vinyl. In bars, I connect my laptop to the CDJs, which works perfect. Although a thumb drive would be way easier. I agree. With CDJs, it is a lot easier. I'm just not good with USB. How to deal with that? I mean, you should go for so. Just to rephrase, when you work with a thumb drive with music that you prepared in Record Box, and you take it from Record Box and export it to your thumb drive, using CDJs is great with a thumb drive like that. Don't just take music and put it on a thumb drive and add it to the CDJ, because then it can't see the cues and everything else in there. Easy Mix Master, that is that. I'm getting to you in a second. I see you with that super chat, and I appreciate that a lot. I'm just gonna finish this one first. I do always feel that you should play the way you're most comfortable. So I like the thumb drive and the way it works with CDJs, but, big but, I do prefer the laptop screen for an overview because it's bigger. I'm not a laptop DJ who stares at the laptop while I'm mixing, but when it comes to like searching for songs, I prefer a bigger screen. And the screen on your laptop is always going to be bigger than the screen on the CDJ. So yeah, it depends. So for me personally, when I'm doing DJ gigs, I will most likely play with my laptop and turntables. So DVS, Serato, whatever software, but mostly Serato with turntables. If I know in advance that they have a CDJ setup and it's going to be really hard to also add turntables, and if I'm not playing too long, so if I'm doing like an hour, cool. I'll make a selection of songs, put it on a flash drive, use the CDJs. Otherwise, I prefer to have my laptop screen there. So I got to get to, so hey, official, thank you so much for the shout out. No problem, of course. Thank you for being here. Easy Mix Master, I have to get to you with that super chat. I really appreciate that support. And the question is, do you think a MacBook Pro Touch Bar from 2017, i7 Intel processor, 16 gigs of RAM is good enough to run stems? Or do I have to get an M1? I mean, that sounds like it should be more than powerful enough. I just haven't tried it. So all I know is that with my M1 MacBook Air, not even Pro, but Air, I can run stems just fine. So I would guess a MacBook Pro with the i7, 16 gigs of RAM, I can only imagine that that will work just fine. Yeah. Sounds right to me. Sounds more than powerful enough to me. But I don't have one here, so I can't be totally sure. But I would think so. Leon Billups, salute to you. Louis Quest in the building. Good to see you too. And yeah, so Pep, yeah, for a 4-hour gig, same here. If I'm doing a gig that's like 2 hours or more, I would prefer the laptop, because if I'm playing longer, there's a good chance that I need to search more, because I'm playing freestyle, don't know what I'm going to play. I want to be able to search through folders, and I'd rather do that on a laptop screen. Like I said, if I'm playing an hour, yeah, I can manage with playlists on flash drives. So Easy Mixmaster, just a quick question. You have the MacBook Pro now? Because, I mean, if you have it, just test it out. But I can't see it not working on a laptop that powerful. It should work. MFB says, how do you get the 2-click flare to sound musical? I have the scratch down. It just doesn't sound great when done over a beat. I mean, that is the tricky part, not just with that technique, but just with scratches overall. You can practice the technique, the movement, without a beat, and get to a point where you feel like, hey, the technique is working. But it is so important to also practice on beats, to hear the scratch on beat, because doing it without a beat still allows you to miss the timing. So you can get the movement right, but you're not doing it on beat. And I mean, I've seen that even with the most basic scratches, like someone starts to move a platter back and forth, and it's like, hey, I'm doing a baby scratch. Yeah, cool. All right, click, start a beat. Now do it on beat, and then you see people start to struggle. I don't have a specific piece of advice for the 2-click flare. One thing I did notice, and that's not something new, but when I first started to hear more DJs do more advanced scratches, So at a certain point, a lot more of the flare type of stuff came in. I did notice that I liked some of the DJs doing it, but with a lot of the other DJs, yes, they were doing very technical stuff. But the thing I kind of disliked about it is it wasn't as funky. I prefer to listen to a DJ do more basic scratches that sound more musical. And there's a lot of cats out there who can do very technical scratches, but they don't sound that musical. And I'm not just saying that because I'm not one of the most technical guys, but I also know that I haven't spent the amount of time I should spend on practicing certain techniques because it's not as appealing to me. And I'd rather do more basic scratches in a more musical, funky way. But yeah, I noticed that a lot of DJs can do advanced scratches, but it kind of loses the musicality. And I think the only solution for you is to just start practicing it over beats and practice it and practice it and practice it. So first you make sure you get that timing right so you can actually do it on beat. And once you get more comfortable with it, that's when you are able to start to make it flow more. And you also need to, of course, have a sense of rhythm. There's DJs out there who can do all the techniques. They can do them over a beat. So they're technically doing it correct, but they don't really have musicality. So they're never going to sound funky. Yeah, Easy Mixmaster. Let me know how that works out. And if anything doesn't work out, either hop in to the live stream next week or just hit me up on IG, send me a DM and let me know how that works out. And Louis Quest says, I have a MacBook Air, runs fine. The only thing I have to worry is overheating. I would assume, so you're running that on an older MacBook Air, not an M1, right? Because that's one thing I noticed with my M1 MacBook Air. It has no fans at all, but it also doesn't get hot at all. That's crazy to me. It has crazy battery life, and it doesn't really get hot. But maybe you have an older MacBook Air. Now, if it works on your older MacBook Air, then the MacBook Pro with 16 gigs of RAM and the i7 should be really, really fine. White Chocolate Radio Network, salute. And I definitely use your Saturday session beats for scratch practice. Love it. New ones are on the way as well, by the way. I've been working on a ton of beats, and there's a lot of beats in there that are probably not going to be used for other projects. So I'm going to be hopefully pumping out a ton of those Saturday sessions. Starting out just once a month. Maybe I'll increase the volume later on. But I'm taking it slow, taking my time with adding more content. Let's see. ARM TV was good. I need to get back to you. You sent me a DM last week. I think I still need to get back to you, right? Let me know. I think so. Sometimes I forget. It's been a bit of a hectic week since last Wednesday. I did the stream last Wednesday. After that, we had to go to a whole different part of the country for a gig in the middle of the night. Came home like early in the morning. And then on that Thursday and Friday, we had the last two dates of the theater tour. So that tour is now done. But yeah, kind of a long week. And from that, we're now rolling into some other stuff. So tomorrow I have a radio thing. Then on Friday, we're doing band practice. And on Saturday, we have a show with a band. Next week, also one with a band. And then Brainpower and I will get back to doing also like some more club and festival shows. So different things happening and working on trying to give you guys more content as well. But what did ARM TV say? Does anyone have an opinion on this new controller from Numark, the Mixstream Pro Go? Looks like it has potential. I mean, I'd love to test it. I saw the videos up. I didn't really check them out yet. What I did see definitely looked interesting. And the fact that it can be like completely portable looks super dope. But I need to look into it more. So I don't know if anyone in the chat has already tested that. But it's dope. I think it's dope. Wait, my sandwich. Just wanted to say that you sparkled in me something about DJing. So I bought an Audio Technica LP 120 turntable and a Newmark M101 mixer. I hope they're good on start something. Do you have any advice what to do first? Learning scratches or mixing songs together or something else? Ooh. I mean, I think it's going to be a combination. I mean, yes. No, let me rephrase. Let me bring it back. It kind of depends on what your goal is. If you just want to be a scratch DJ, then you want to spend the most time just learning how to scratch. If you're actually looking into having fun with your music and just DJing, then you really need to work on that part and practice mixing. And at the same time, you can also just work on some basic scratches as well. So just start with my mix tutorial and my scratch tutorial. That's a great place to start. And yeah, that should help you quite a bit. And it also should be quite some time before you need more information than that. Because learning how to mix, even learning basic scratches, is not something you'll do in just the next couple of weeks or even months. That might be longer than that. So yeah, start with those. Let me scroll. Hold up. What did I miss? Arm TV DM. Yes. Okay. Got you. I'll get back to you for sure. MFB says, I have a hard time switching back to a regular controller after using the Rain one for about 3 months. I have to break out my Rev 1 every once in a while so I keep up. I mean, yeah, for sure. I mean, once you get into the habit of playing with motorized platters or turntables, something with actual spinning platters, there's always that little moment when you get back to using a quote unquote regular controller with jog wheels. Feeling is everything, and that's just a difference. I have the same thing here. So 2 weeks ago when I did the stream with the Flex 10 with Rekordbox, of course, I have my uncomfortable moments because of Rekordbox and the stems, but it also always takes me a second to get back into jog wheel mode because all the streams before that were turntables and phase. And I've been touring with the theater tour using turntables with phase. So I was also totally in turntable mode for the last, I don't know how many months. And then you put a controller in front of me and you need that adjustment time. Now, for me, that adjustment time might not be as long as for someone else. I can switch pretty easily. But I do have to catch that feeling for a second and like, okay, certain things just feel a little bit different. So that's not crazy at all. If you've been on Rain 1 for 3 months, then you're totally into motorized platter mode, into vinyl mode. And then you're going to have to make the adjustment. But if you've played on different devices enough, like for me personally, it doesn't take that long. Because you have to imagine, even if you're using turntables, every turntable feels different. In the clubs, I played with the Technics SL1200s. I had those myself, but then I switched to Vestax turntables, using those at home and for gigs, like touring. But when I got to clubs, I was back on SLs. Then I got Newmark TTX, and then I got this and that. They all work, but they all feel a little bit different. I was streaming here with the Reloop set. I was doing the theater tour with the Denon set. And every time you have to feel them for a sec again. So that's totally normal. Dior Tony, salute. Haha, dope. So that was before you could afford equipment, but in the meantime, did you get equipment? You're using it now? The Sava. Yes, indeed. You want to know where you can locate my tutorials? Well, you're already watching on YouTube, so you're in the right place. That's my YouTube channel, DJ TLM TV. On my channel page, check out the playlists, And I have one playlist called Mix Tutorial, and I have a playlist called Scratch Tutorial. And that will set you up. All of the videos you need are in there. MFB says, I feel like it's when I'm scratching with my non-dominant hand is when I have the most issues. So when you say scratching, I'm going to assume that you mean the platter hand, because here's the thing. Scratching is not a one-hand process, right? For most scratches. Now, you could do scratches just with your hand on vinyl or on a jog wheel and move it back and forth, and even then do different movements to create actual quote unquote like melodies. But for most scratches, you're going to be using your platter and fader. So what are we talking about here? When you say non-dominant hand for scratching, is your non-dominant hand on the platter at that time or on the fader? Because I have that same thing. Like, I can do certain scratches on the right deck and certain scratches on the left deck. And there's a bunch of scratches I can do on both. But some scratches just work for me on one side when my right hand is on the platter, left hand is on the fader. And the other way around. So, for instance, transforming, I'm using my left deck most of the times to use my right hand, and I'm right-handed, to use my right hand for the fader for the transform. Okay, could make sense. Funny thing is, when I'm doing flares, I'm on the right deck with my dominant hand on the platter and my left hand on the fader. And somehow that works for me. And trust me, I cannot flare when I'm using my right hand on the fader. Crazy enough. And I still need to work on that to become like totally ambidextrous with that. That's the only thing I want to improve. So not even learn new scratch techniques, even though that would be cool. I would rather be able to do the techniques I can do now on both decks, because now sometimes I am really dependent on which side I'm on is going to decide what type of cuts I'm going to do. So MFB, let me know what you remember. Okay, platter hand. So yeah, practicing is the only way to improve that and make it better. But it's not easy. Like I said, I have the same thing. Some scratches just don't work for me with one hand on the platter, and the other scratches do. And I know if I want to improve that, I need to practice. I just don't know when I'm going to find the time to do that. DJ Thunder Gene in the building. Salute. And Dior Tony says, I DJ full time now in the DMV. Dope, dope, dope. That's dope. I love that. Yeah, man, that's great to hear. Easy Mix Master with another super chat. Yo, much love. I got two Technics 1210, and I also got the Audiophone needles. I try all different settings, but I keep skipping playing real vinyl. I play real vinyl. Any help? Okay. There's a bunch of different things that can have an influence on how steady your vinyl is. So first off, the vinyl. Vinyl can be tricky. So I've encountered plenty of issues with vinyl in all my vinyl years. So for instance, if your vinyl isn't flat, and sometimes you can't really see it, you have to like test it on your decks. If the vinyl is not perfectly flat, what can happen is if you apply some pressure on one side, the other side of the vinyl comes up a bit. If it's totally flat, that won't really happen. But I've had a lot of vinyl where there's a little curve in there. And if the curve is like this, and you apply pressure on one side, the other side goes up, which could make it skip easier. So with certain records, I would bend. Be very careful with that, I have to add. That only works well if the vinyl is thin enough. If you have thicker vinyl, like the 180 gram vinyl, bending is most likely going to turn into breaking. So gently. The other thing you could do if you want to get your vinyl to be more straight is just put it underneath something heavy. So find, for instance, I would have like a little wooden block that could go on top of the vinyl, in the sleeve, of course, protect that vinyl, and put a stack of books on it. Leave that overnight. Sometimes it would take out the curve a bit. That could be one issue. Second thing, the hole in the middle of the vinyl. Sometimes if that's too big, it means you're going to get this lateral movement sideways. So even when you're going back and forth, the record's not just going back and forth, it's also going side to side. Needles don't like that. If a needle's in a groove, but the vinyl is going side to side, it's going to be easier for it to jump out of that groove. What I would normally do for that is just take any kind of stickers or labels and put them inside through the hole. And then, yeah, that's really hard for me to point out. Do I have a video on that on my channel? Do I have a video? I'm thinking. Maybe I can grab some vinyl. I'm going to have to see if I can do something about that. But find a way to make that hole a little bit smaller so you don't have that movement, that side-to-side movement. That can cause skips. Now, I don't know how you have everything set up. Sometimes there needs to be a little bit more weight on the needles, depending on what type of needles you're using. You're saying Artifoam, but they have a lot of different needles, so I don't know which ones you're using. That is something that helped me out on certain occasions. And to be honest, I never paid too much attention to the anti-skip settings, but there are settings, so it could be worth taking a look at that, and how high the arm is. So a lot of times with turntables, you have your tone arm. Your tone arm is connected to the turntable, and you can turn that entire part where the tone arm is connected to up and down. If it's a little bit higher, there's going to be a different weight distribution on your tone arm, on your needle. All of the things can help, and it can be different for different records. Sometimes if I had it too heavy, it actually didn't help, and I had to make it a little bit lighter. On top of all that, so besides just the vinyl or the needle and the tone arm, there's also your movement. So that's, for me, something I had to learn early on. Like when I first started DJing, the needles I was using, they were DJ needles, but they weren't specifically for scratching. Scratch needles can be a little bit more sturdy, better for it. But you learned in the beginning how to have a more gentle touch for certain records, because sometimes I was using vinyl and I had like 2 copies there, was backspinning, doing even crazier stuff with it. Everything was perfect. Then I grabbed the next record to play, and I tried to scratch the beginning and it skipped. Got it back and it skipped again. And I felt like, okay, for this piece of vinyl, I have to apply a lighter touch. Less pressure, because somehow this record is more sensitive. I don't know why. I have no idea. Like I can try to think of things, but I don't know. I just know you always have to adjust your movement. So it could also be that you're too heavy-handed and you have to be more subtle with your movements. And when I had a record that forced me to be more subtle, once I found that subtle movement, I tried to still do my scratches, but in a more subtle way with less pressure on the vinyl. All of those things could be causing the issue. Not even to start about how steady the furniture is, the table is that you're using for the setup. Man, anything, that's the thing with real vinyl, and I've seen it and had a lot happen. Like, there's a lot of things that could cause skipping. That was one of the things that really excited me about starting to use DVS, because I still have my vinyl feel, but I didn't have to worry about all of the skips anymore, because it can be frustrating at home, but especially if you're in a club and you're playing for a crowd. If the record skips, even if it's not your fault, but somebody like bumped into the DJ booth, and that can happen a lot, they still look at you like, hey, DJ, what are you doing? And you know it's not your fault. They don't care. All they know is, hey, I was in a groove, and now all of a sudden I'm not in that groove anymore because the vinyl skipped. Yeah. So I hope that helps you out. There's a lot of things that could be the issue. I for certain can't tell what it is from here. And Mulberry also adds, keep your turntables leveled. And that could also be a thing. Like if it's not leveled, that could be an issue as well. Vinyl Touch was good. Ana Son Goku, I see you. Salute. How to DJ for high school prom. So that is one thing I know absolutely nothing about. Proms aren't really a thing here, even though there are sometimes high schools or our equivalent to high schools, they will have like events and they will have a DJ there, but it's not a significant thing as it is in the States, for instance. And I have no idea if there's like protocol for that. I don't even know most of the times what kind of DJs are playing there. So, wow. So chat, this is a good one for the chat, especially for my people in the US. If you've played proms, or is there a specific protocol and how do you do that? For instance, wedding DJs have a totally different job compared to a club DJ. I can imagine that a high school prom, there might be certain rules and guidelines, but I have no idea at all. So chat, if anyone knows, jump in and share the knowledge. Moel, salute, much love. And let's see. ARM-TV. It's crazy to hear one of favorite DJs saying that he has to practice. Hey, man, it is what it is. Like, let's be honest. Just in life in general, you can always learn. You know, you can always learn. Only a fool would say like that he or she knows everything. That there's nothing more to learn. And if you've been DJing for a while, you should probably know that there are certain things you're not good at. And sometimes that doesn't matter because it doesn't really help you to become better at the way you DJ. And this is something, that's why it hasn't been a priority for me. It's not something that I need. I just know at a certain point, it just would be dope to be able to do scratches with any hand, any scratch with any hand. But I also know that's just going to take a ton of time. Vinyl Touch says, Artifon actually recommends using the anti-skate setting, but I don't know if any turntablist DJ actually uses it. Yeah, that's the thing. I mean, I've seen like tutorials in the past where they tell you like, hey, take the anti-skating and set it to this or that. I personally never looked at it, used it. Also never really tested to see which setting would make the most difference. Now, that's not totally true. At a certain point, I did like try a different setting, like took it from 0 and put it to 3 or whatever. I just never noticed the difference when I used the anti-skate. It didn't become more steady for scratching. So I just don't know. Let's see. What EQ settings do you like to use when scratching a sample over a beat? Do you like to add a high-pass filter or any other effects? And do you like to lower the volume on the sample side? So, yes, that's a good question. Normally when I'm mixing, and for instance, a lot of times when I scratch during my live sets, I'm just scratching with the song that I'm mixing out. So I'll have a song playing. I'm going to add a new song to it. I add the song, work with the EQ, and most likely I will already have taken the low end, so the bass, out of the outgoing track and let the new track have that low end. Sometimes from the beginning of my transition, just straight away start it with full bass and immediately take the bass out of the other one. Sometimes I do it halfway. Millions of ways you could do that. But I end up a lot of times taking the track that I'm going to mix out and just grabbing it at a certain point, and that's always freestyle, and then I'll start to scratch with that. Now, to make the scratches fit in a little bit better, it's always good to take the low end out or lower the low end. You don't want it to be too bassy when you're scratching over a different beat, unless you're actually doing drum scratches and you want to have like a full sounding bass scratch, but that's not what you're doing most of the times. So sometimes I add the high pass filter, yes, but at least I will take some of that low end out. I don't lower the volume most of the times, but that's why it's always important to just use your ears. And if you watch my live sessions, you'll see me do that sometimes. I'll start a scratch, and after like 2 or 3 sounds, you see me stop and just adjust my gain, my trim real quick, because I can hear like, hey, it's too loud, too overpowering, or hey, that's not loud enough. Because I want the scratch to be heard. It shouldn't overpower everything, but you should be able to clearly hear it. Otherwise, why am I doing it? So yes, EQ, take some of that low end out. Volume, most of the times I don't have to adjust that. Taking that low end out will do the job. But always, always use your ears. More than even looking at like levels, hear how it sounds. Because sometimes levels can be deceiving. You can see like your levels and you're like, oh, okay, that scratch is nice. It's a little bit lower than the actual beat. That should be good. And then you add the scratches and they still sound way too loud because maybe they have a lot of mid in there. And then they're like piercing through and they're still too loud. Ears, ears, ears. Raider 1, salute. Swamp Thing. Let's see. I've been DJing on the DJ 1000 for years and love it. However, I want to give homage to the turntable or at least a rotating platter. I'm nervous about transitioning into turntable or rotating platter. Do you recommend a specific hardware to start with a platter that moves? No, not really. I mean, on the one hand, I would say if you are accustomed to using a controller, then on the one hand, it would probably be more comfortable for you to have something that still has that controller type layout that you're used to, but with motorized platters. Then again, you could kind of recreate that with turntables and a performance mixer. So if you take a mixer, like if we just stick to Pioneer, if you take something like an S7, S9, S11 that has the performance pads that you're already used to from your DDJ 1000, then that helps. But the thing is, they will be placed a little bit different. On your DDJ 1000, your performance pads are on the player parts of the controller, on the sides. And if you're using the turntable style like I do, then your performance pads are in the middle on the mixer. I mean, my favorite mixer, favorite controller with motorized platters is Pioneer's Rev 7. That is still a controller. The only thing that could be a little bit tricky for someone coming from a DDJ 1000 is that the entire layout on the Rev 7 is geared towards turntablists who use their turntables battle style. And if you're not familiar with battle style, a lot of turntablists would take their turntables and set them up sideways to move the tone arm, the needle, away from them. Instead of having the needles on the side, they would have them at the top, which also meant that your pitch slider is also not on the side, but on the top. They did that with the Rev 7. I absolutely love that because I'm used to that. But I also saw a lot of comments when it was first announced. They were like, why are the pitch sliders at the top and not on the side? That makes no sense. But it made perfect sense for me. So look, if you're coming from a controller, no matter what type of device you use, so if you're going to go for actual turntables or a controller with motorized platters, there's going to be a crazy adjustment period because it is something totally different. It's just a totally different feel. Because with your jog wheels, they're not moving, and now all of a sudden you have something that actually moves, and the feeling is going to be really different. I love that feeling, but I come from turntables. So I don't know if I could suggest a specific device for this, but you have a bunch of options. So either you go for a turntable set, buy some turntables and a mixer, but then I would say that a performance mixer would make the best option with performance pads. Now, I just named the Pioneer mixers, but they're not the cheapest mixers. There are more available, more affordable options out there that have performance pads. So you should just look and see which one would fit your budget. If you're going to go for controllers, you have Pioneer's Rev 7. You have the Rain 1. You could look at, but that's a bigger beast, like get a Newmark NS7 Mark III. Tractor S4 Mark III, but I wouldn't suggest using that one. The jog wheels, they're motorized, but they are really small. But you have a couple of different options. If you have the option to go to a store to actually just look and feel in person, that will be the best, because they're not cheap devices. And it will be good to feel first. Also, if you're going to go for a motorized platter on a controller, they're going to be roughly the same size as the jog wheels that you're used to now. If you're going to go for actual turntables, that's going to be bigger. And I can't say one or the other is better, because you're going to have an adjustment period anyway. Oh, let's see. That's Swamp Thing and Vinyl Touch. In theory, it does help a little, because the needle naturally tries to move to the center of the record, while anti-skate works in the opposite direction. In reality, at least for me, the needle jumping off the record is the bigger problem. And anti-skate doesn't help with that. Yeah, facts. Indeed. Can you identify most scratches just by listening to them? I'm trying to figure out this scratch I hear one of my favorite DJs do on his mixtape, but I can't figure out exactly what he's doing. No. I mean, yes, I can identify certain scratches. The thing is, a lot of times when you hear a DJ scratching, the DJ is doing a combination of a bunch of techniques. Like, it doesn't happen that often that a DJ is just doing a baby scratch for like bars on end, or doing just a transform. But yes, I can recognize a bunch of those. Sometimes it's harder to recognize, because at certain times a flare can actually sound like a transform, and you can't really hear right away. When I first started, I heard a ton of scratches on records. At that time, it was very normal in hip hop for rap songs to have a DJ on the chorus. At a certain point, I was practicing scratches. I didn't have tutorials. I didn't have a mentor, so I didn't know what I was doing, and I was just trying to emulate what I heard on songs. I had no idea what anything was called or how to do it, but I was trying to emulate the sound that I heard. Like, how can I get that same sound? Same thing kind of happened with the flare scratch. I was doing a scratch that was at a certain point here in Amsterdam when we had Fat Beats here. They had like a setup in the store, and I think they had a new mixer a new version of the PMC-05 by Vestax. I think the second version. And they had a setup, and everyone was just doing a bunch of scratching. So at a certain point, I was scratching, and I was just doing some of the stuff I was used to doing. And then someone told me, like, "Oh, damn, you know the flare." And I was like, "Huh, really?" And turns out, yes, the sound I'm creating is the flare, but I didn't learn it the traditional way. It just kind of happened. That happened with more of the techniques that I use. But yeah. Do you know? I mean, you could send me the track and let me know what part in the track it is. Maybe I can hear it, but chances are that I can't really hear, because it could be a combination of a bunch of different scratches. Dior Tony says, for proms, I play a lot of the hot songs from like 5 years back or so, and then the super new stuff, but the mainstream bangers work. Pitbull, Florida, stuff like that. And for some reason, all the kids love ABBA. Nah, I don't get it. Okay. And John Lowe says, I've been DJing for 19 years. Would love to learn to scratch using the DJ SX to give me another dimension. Yes. Are your tutorials the same thing using a controller or using turntables? Yes. Yes. That's something I mentioned when I did those tutorials. Like, hey, I'm doing this on a turntable, but you can most definitely do this on a controller. I would say some of the more advanced scratches probably work better with a motorized platter. But all of the scratches in my scratch tutorial are more basic, and they definitely work on any device. So yes, you can most definitely do that. And I agree. I feel scratches will add another dimension to a DJ's arsenal. It doesn't mean you have to do entire scratch sessions, but just the difference alone, if you learn, for instance, just the first step, the baby scratch, just if it back and forth, just to be able to scratch in a new song instead of just tapping on cue and start is already a difference, and is already something that a lot of DJs can't do or don't want to learn because they don't want to do, which is perfectly fine. But if you're playing in an area with a lot of different DJs and a lot of those DJs aren't able to do that, if you're playing and all of a sudden you're like, if bringing in a track, that is something different. Now, for me personally, I just do it because it's so much fun to me, and I prefer playing with my set instead of having to do other things. But I do feel it adds something to be able to do that, whatever genre of music you play. Also, my hand seems to move on the platter. Do you have to continuously move your hand or use more pressure, or do you scratch using small increments? That totally depends on what type of scratch you're doing. So when you're starting out, just learning the baby scratch, that is simply that back and forth motion, nothing more. But even that one can be longer movements when you're doing it slower. When you start to do it faster, it's going to be a shorter motion. So yes, do you have to continuously move? Well, no, but it depends on what you're doing with your scratches. It could also be that you scratch back and forth a couple of times and then you let it go so people can hear the sound, and then you bring it back and do it again. But start with that beginning and take it from there. That's also very important. I know a lot of people who see a DJ, especially now on Instagram, you have all these DJs with their little highlight mini videos, and they do stuff that looks very exciting, and people see, oh, look at all those fingers go across that crossfader. I want to learn how to do that. That's cool. You got to start with the baby steps. Start slow. And the first step is the baby scratch. Just learn how to do that back and forth motion, then learn how to do that on beat, learn how to do that rhythmically, see how much you can do with just that. That's even before we add in the extra element of using your other hand on the fader to turn the sound on and off. Just the back and forth motion on the platter and being able to turn that sound on and off in different manners is already opening your world to a ton of different scratches. That's before we even get into all of the extra movements you can do with the platter hand and the fader hand. Vinyl Touch, given all of the different feeling deck setups, turntables, smaller, motorized platters, CDJ platters, do you have issues with adjustments when playing out on new equipment? If so, do you have a routine / warm-up that you do to minimize adjustment time? I don't have routines. Now, I don't know. It hasn't happened to me much that I've done, for instance, done a gig on gear that I never used before. That hasn't happened a lot. But yes, there is an adjustment period when you go from turntables to a DDJ 400 with small jog wheels to a Rev 7 and then CDJs. Everything is different. Everything is different. But no, I don't have a routine for that. And I mean, it is, I think, because I've been playing for such a long time, I've used a ton of different equipment. So it doesn't take me that long to adjust. And of course, on the headphones, you can do a little bit of like a feel when it comes to the scratches, like how does it feel? But a lot of times I don't even do that. I just start, and when I do my first transition and I scratch it in, I'll find out soon enough, like, oh, wait, I have to not use the heavy hand today. I have to take this a little bit more gentle. Same thing with like how far you have to bring a platter back. Now, muscle memory is a real thing. And the fact that I learned on turntables, I noticed that like years ago when I first started to work with controllers, it helped so much because even if I had a controller that I never used before, it wouldn't take me long to understand like how far I would have to pull a jog wheel back to get the same effect as on a turntable. And I remember seeing the comments like with, for instance, with a Newmark, the Mix Track, but like the Mix Track Pro first version, and people were leaving comments like, I have that same controller. How can you do this on this controller? And I just knew that the muscle memory from all of those years with turntables definitely helped me out. But adjustments, yeah, I make them on the fly. Would I play with equipment I've never played with before? It depends on the gig. Like if I know I have a gig where it's just important to make sure I perform at an all-time high, you want to make sure you're doing it on gear that you're familiar with, which would be most gigs. But if it's just something that's all in fun, then I don't mind playing on anything. Let's see. Vinyl Touch says the same question above for controllers with different layout and new options as well. Okay, so I saw another super chat. Who was that? Javi, I think. I saw another super chat. There's not even a question in there. Hey, I appreciate that. I appreciate that support a ton. All right, back to this one. Yes, like controllers can have different layouts. If I know I'm going to do a gig, so this is why communication is very important. Let's say you're being booked for a gig and you're going to have to play on the club's equipment. You want to make sure you know in advance what they have in their DJ booth. You don't ever want to be surprised on the spot and see something you've never played on before. So if you get that information, and for instance, you might have a DDJ 400 at home, a small controller, and they tell you like, hey, they have at the venue, they're going to have a setup with two CDJ 2000 Nexus 2 and a DJM 900 Nexus 2 mixer. You've never played on that setup before. All right, first things first, there's a couple of things that we DJs really need in order to mix, and those are the most important things. We need to know how to load our songs because we need to be able to load songs into whatever device we're using. We need to know where play and stop is. And we need to know where the pitch is so we can adjust the tempo. And on the mixer section or on the mixer, we need to know how to hear what's happening, so to cue. And we need to be able to get it through the speakers, channel faders, crossfader. If you have those things working, you can start mixing. EQ would be also very interesting because it can make everything sound better. But beyond just being able to start, stop, change the tempo, load the tracks, use the faders, use the EQ, you're set for basic mixing. But of course, a lot of devices will have a ton of extra features. Some of those you might want to use, like certain effects, you name it. If I've never played on CDJ 2000 Nexus 2 and a DJM 900 Nexus 2, the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go to youtube.com and I'm going to try to find some nice review/overview videos for that gear, or maybe even look if there's a tutorial how to play on whatever gear you need to play on. Hopefully that video or those videos will give me enough information to know like, okay, cool. I see how to search for tracks, how to load tracks. That's cool. For me personally, I love using instant doubles. So if I'm using different gear, can I somehow use instant doubles with this gear, and how do I do it? At a certain point, it does become intuitive because a lot of controllers will have pretty similar features or pretty similar ways of how they work. But you want to know that stuff in advance and look it up. Look it up. But at the end of the day, for us DJs, the most important thing would be just the basic features. and they're gonna be in the same area on most devices. Most of the controllers will have a start stop at a pretty similar spot, or at least they'll look pretty similar. Faders are going to be easy to find and recognize. EQ is almost always right above those channel faders, and the tempo slider should be pretty easy to recognize as well. And once you have that, you could do a mix. That's why a lot of times when you see me do streams with new gear, if I haven't had the time to properly test it or look at it, I'm doing full mixes, but I'm not using all of the extra features, bells and whistles, because I haven't looked into those yet. But I'll have no problem mixing on it. You can give me an XCJ RX3. I had that in the studio for like a day, I think, and I didn't test it. I just made sure it was working, and I did my live stream, and that worked just fine. People wouldn't even know it was my first time touching that device. So yeah, but knowing in advance what's there and finding some info, if there's special features you need to know, that is very, very helpful, and you should definitely do that research. All right, let me scroll up just in case I missed a bunch of things. No, we had that one. And the Salva says, salute to the baby scratch. Yes. Hey, that baby scratch, that movement, just that movement is the foundation of so many scratches. It is. DJ Cade is asking, do you still use skipless scratch records? If so, what are some of your favorites? I mean, I can't really remember the last time I used it. Like, I used to use them for live gigs a lot. Especially if I was doing like tour gigs with Brain Power, and I always had a couple of tracks where I do some scratches. Those were great to use. All the years before that, I didn't have them, and sometimes you would have the skips, so this would help. For those who are not familiar with what skipless scratch records are, it's not that vinyl can't, that the needle can't skip. It can, but they made it so that you'll have an entire section of vinyl where there's a bunch of sounds you hear that you can use for scratching. And all across that piece of the vinyl, that sound is lined up in the exact same position on the vinyl. So if a needle would jump a little bit and it would land again, it would still be on that same sound. So it's not as if the needle doesn't skip. You just won't notice it a lot, just that millisecond when the needle goes up and comes down, but you're still on the same sound. You could actually make something like that yourself nowadays too. DJ Angelo made a video about that. I think 5, 6, 7 years ago, he made one in Ableton. I think the one I use the most is probably just the Scratchy Seal. I don't have that many. I have a couple somewhere in my collection, and I actually need to dig them up for my next vinyl sets. So that super chat, amazing, even though there's no question, but I appreciate that support. Javi, I think it was. MFB says, I feel like the chirp is the most versatile scratch. It seems like it can be used in so many different ways. Part of a scratch combination to transition between songs to connect scratches. For sure, it is one of those scratches. I mean, the chirp basically is a fast baby where you're incorporating that crossfader. So yes, that is one scratch that you can use a lot. For me personally, the transformer is one of those scratches that you can use because you can use it on basically any tempo. Because if you slow a chirp down, it doesn't really sound like a chirp anymore. That only works if you keep it sharp. But with that transformer, if you have, even if the tempo is really high, you could even go halftime with your transformer and still make it sound funky. You can do a lot of different things with that. But I agree, a chirp is a great scratch. Marianne, what's up? And when you perform your scratches, do you consider how they sound / flow musically as well as technically? If yes, do you have a practice routine to improve, stay sharp in that? No, here's the thing. Like I explained earlier, Most of the times when I scratch during my sets, it is something that I decide on the fly. Well, I can say actually not mostly, like basically all of the time. My sets are freestyle. All the live streams you see are freestyle. I have no idea how I'm going to play in advance. During transitions, I'll decide like, okay, I'm going to grab this record, hold it, and do a little cutting with it. Now with stems, it's even easier because I can just take the drums out, take an acapella, make it acapella, and use the voice. Um, so the beat that is on, so the track that I'm mixing in, the vibe of that beat will kind of dictate what type of scratches I'm going to be doing. This depending on the tempo and what type of vibe it has. Uh, so not a specific practice routine, but I do feel it's a good idea when you're practicing your scratches to scratch over a bunch of different beats that have like different styles, not just a different tempo, because of course you can increase the level of difficulty by either increasing the volume a lot or decreasing. If you make a track really slow, it also becomes harder to do certain scratches. But different vibes of beats. So, like some beats will have a lot of energy, and if they have a lot of energy, you're not going to be doing some sort of like laid back funky scratch. You're going to probably do more aggressive stab type of stuff over that to match the vibe of the beat. But that would be my advice. Just practice over a bunch of different styles of beats of music. That should help. So Mariana has a question as well. How you pick songs for the Sunday sessions and how do you line them up? For most of my sessions, and I actually do want to adjust that, but for most of the sessions up until this point, for all of my live streams, I've done close to no preparation. On occasion, when I had time, I would, for instance, go through Beat Source and look for a bunch of like newer music that I don't have in my own collection and just add it to one big playlist. I'll call it playlist because that's what they call it, but let's call it a folder. So I'll have a bunch of music in a folder, and all of those tracks I added are tracks that I saw and I was like, hey, cool, I might want to play that. But I don't have any idea which track I'm going to play when. If I have more preparation time, and that is what that I do want to, that's why I said I want to adjust. I want to make the Sunday sessions and the other upcoming mix shows that I'll be doing. I want to have more of a feel that I did for the radio show I did last year, where I'm still not preparing my set, but I want to have a more clear selection of songs. Like, okay, these are the songs I want to play. And something I still don't do enough, I'll make sure to prepare those songs. Well, what I mean by that is make sure I add cue points, listen to the song, see if there's parts that I want to have a loop set for. Just in case I play them, I have that ready. Because now a lot of times I might have songs in a folder, but when I load them in during my live stream is when I add cue points and when I add loops. So I'm doing a little bit too much on the fly, and it works. I can do it, but it would be more satisfying to have all of that prepared. So whatever track I load, the cue points are there. I have some loops, and that will give me more creative ideas. Like, okay, I know I have that loop in there. What track do I have here? Cool, I'm going to set that up, and I'm going to scratch with this part. Stuff like that. Now, a lot of times I will sort the folder according to BPM more than key. Key is great if I have a ton of songs and I just want to look for anything that could match musically, and then you come up with combinations you wouldn't have thought of a lot of times, especially if you have enough music in that folder. But normally I'm more of a tempo-based guy. Like I want to start at a certain tempo and then take it up or down. But key is a great option as well. I don't want to say I have like great hearing for key and for tones, but I'm okay with it. I can hear when certain tracks don't match key wise, and I won't play those or do crazy stuff with them, like use the acapella and an instrumental when the key is off. But if I want to just give myself new options that I didn't think of before, then using key can be a very cool option. But BPM I use more. Lamuma Moody in the building, salute. Also good if you have friends that use different equipment. Practice with them and try them out. Turntables, CDs, controllers, various mixers. Also practice on setup demos at Guitar Center, etc. Yeah, indeed. 100%. That's something I always liked. Also, on certain occasions, I would go to these like specials, not seminars, but like a couple of turntablists would organize like a little get together, and they would have a bunch of different setups that they were using, including like portable turntables, different mixers, one on Tractor, one on Serato, certain mixers that I knew, other mixers that I didn't try before, or one would have like an innovator in there. Jumping in there and trying stuff out is a great way to experience how stuff feels. For me, feeling is very important. So that is great. If you have a lot of other like friends / colleagues that also have gear and you do get together, it is great to try that stuff out as well. 100%. Why does my restream say top 50 hip hop beats Sunday session still? Because that's not the session we're on. No, Mixcloud and YouTube clearly say share the knowledge. Oh, Mixcloud. Hello. Sorry, Mixcloud. Favor on Mixcloud. Salute, I see you. You have a MacBook Pro i5 with 8 gigs of RAM and stems are pretty good. So it should get better with more powerful system. Thank you. That's great to hear. For who was it? I think it was Easy Mixer with the Easy Mix Master, sorry, with the MacBook Pro, if I'm not mistaken. He had the i7 with 16 gigs. You have an i5 with 8 gigs. So yeah, that should run. DJ World Supreme, salute to you. What is your feeling with all the new controllers coming out? I feel like a war. It feels like a war to me. I purchased the Rain 1 when it first came out, but soon after, every other company found an opportunity to tap into the market. It's crazy. Well, is that true though? Like, if you take a look at the Rain 1, there's a couple of other controllers with motorized platters, but it's still not that many. Right? There's a couple out there, but not that many. But then again, yes, I mean, there's a lot of gear out there. Did Mixcloud freeze? Let me quickly Okay, I'm still there. Good. Like, yeah, there is a ton of different gear that comes out. I need to pay more attention again because I need to try to make sure that I'm up to speed with all the new gear, especially if I want to answer questions. 312 in the building from Germany, salute. But once you find something that works for you, so for instance, you have the Rain 1, and if that works for you, and I still know plenty of DJs who have the Rain 1 and that is working for them, the only time you should feel like you need to upgrade is if there's new gear that comes out that has features that really make you say like, oh wow, that will really improve my my performance, make me feel better, it has a better workflow, you name it. If that's not the case, then it doesn't really matter. At least to me, there's a ton of new gear that comes out. For me, the Rev 7 is still on top of my wish list. I mean, I have it here a bunch of times. Pioneer here in the Netherlands has a unit that is at my studio most of the times. It's not here now because there were a couple of DJs who wanted to try it out, but I know it's coming back soon. But there's a ton of stuff that came out after that, but nothing that would fit my style of playing better. So for me, I don't see anything coming close to making me want that over the Rev 7, for instance. Marianne wants to know how your next Sunday session will be. I don't know what I'm going to do yet. So, look, for my normal Sunday sessions, the the vibe I'm going for is that Sunday afternoon vibe. Even though I know from all over the world people tune in, I start at 4 o'clock here in Amsterdam. For some people, that is early in the morning. For some people, if we go more towards Asia, that's already way later in the day. Um, but I'm going for more of a Sunday afternoon vibe. So I'm using throwback hip hop and R&B. So anything from like late 80s all the way up to 2005, maybe 10. I make that throwback. I keep it broad, but go for a little bit more of that laid back hip hop and R&B vibe. Now, last Sunday was a little bit different because I did that top 50 greatest hip hop beats thing. That included a lot of music that had more energy in it, but normally that's what I go for. If I have time, I go through a lot of my music folders and I try to make at least a selection, because that works easier for me than having like big folders of music. But if I don't find the time, then I will have a big hip hop crate, a big R&B crate, or at least I have a 80s and 90s hip hop crate and a 2000s hip hop crate, and I have, I think, a 90s and a 2000s R&B crate. I'll take those and just pick songs for that while I'm on the fly. I also always try to remember which songs I've already used in previous episodes because I don't want to play the same stuff again. But sometimes I will mess up there and I'll play something, and then after that I'll hear like, oh damn, I played that 3 weeks ago. But that is a little bit of a mission impossible if you're doing it totally on the fly. If I want to make sure I'm playing totally different songs every week, I'll have to make a proper selection and look at lists from the other weeks. And it's not that important. That's more of a personal thing. I want to play as much different music as possible, but I also shouldn't make it too hard on myself. And if I play a song that I played 2 weeks ago, hey, it's one song. You're not. I know for a fact you're not going to hear 10 of the same songs within 1 month. That's at least the goal. Sorry. RMTV. I'll see you soon, and I'll make sure I'll check that DM ASAP. What time is it, by the way? Oh, cool. We got 30 minutes on the clock, so we're good. Was anything added to Mixcloud? I'll try to look at Mixcloud a little more often, but most of the times there's not that much happening there. World Supreme, I see you. Yes, that's the thing, and I don't want to keep complaining about Mixcloud. I love the fact that they're there and they're doing everything, especially on the music side, 100% legal. It's the only platform where you can actually stream your music without any repercussions. But I don't know. It doesn't seem like they're spending too much time on updating and upgrading their streaming. I think you still can't really do stuff like rating, and Mixcloud still isn't in the Restream chat app. I'm seeing all of the others there. Facebook is here. YouTube is here. Twitch is here. I can't see Mixcloud. Every time I have to remind myself to look at my browser like, oh, yeah, Mixcloud, and see if anyone's there. Plus, the community there is still not that large compared to stuff like Twitch. Let's see. Javi, you have the Rev 7. Nice. Yeah, man, I love that one too. Like at a certain point, I want to have my own, but I can't like spend money on a controller now. And the fact that I can have Pioneer's one here most of the times for now is cool. But yeah, I for me that's the best controller with motorized platters, but for very specific reasons. I will never say that is the one that people need to get, but just the layout, perfect for me. Does the no play over rule apply to your play out sets as well? If so, how long do you wait until playing over tracks? Play over in the sense of like playing a song twice, or play a song that another DJ played? I think that's what you mean, right? Or do you mean like that I try to play different songs? Let's say I have a gig now, and if I have a gig tomorrow that I don't want to play the same stuff I played yesterday. That's probably what you mean, right? Look, here's the thing. let's say I have 2 gigs in a row, so one today, one tomorrow. At that point, if I'm playing in a club, I have a very specific goal. I'm there to rock that crowd, and you're gonna do that by playing the music that they came to hear. So if I'm playing 2 hip-hop gigs in a row, there's no chance that I'm going to leave some of the most popular joints that will work for that crowd out because I played it the night before. Now, if you have a residency, let's say you play at the same place every week. I've seen and heard plenty of DJs who had residencies, and I don't do it now, but let's say 15 years ago, I would have a lot of gigs every week, but anytime I wasn't playing, or sometimes even after my own gigs, I would still go to other clubs, hang out, whatever, have fun, party. So I would hear other DJs. I know a ton of DJs that have residencies, and you could literally just tell people you were with, like, okay, you hear a certain song, and you could just tell them, like, okay, he's going to play this next. And he'd play that one. He's going to play this next. To me, that's the corniest thing ever. Like, really, bro? Even if you're playing the same songs, like almost even like the order they played them in would be like mostly the same. You can kind of get away with that if you're playing in different spots. But if you're playing at if you have a residency, you're playing at the same spot every week, chances are you're going to have a pretty similar audience in there as well, you know, in a lot of places, because people will have their steady stop. Shit is banging. I see you. I'm not going to throw DNS under the bus, even though I have to say with DNS, I haven't really heard him do that, but he does have like his steady little mini routines. And then I do exactly know what he's going to do. So yeah, but no. Like the one I'm talking about, the one like I can think of like at least 10 DJs that had like big residencies here in Amsterdam and in the surrounding area, where you could literally just go to the club and you could tell, like I said, I would be with people. Of course, as a DJ, you hear that transition, so you can already tell them, like, okay, this track is coming. But then when that track is on, I can tell them the next 2 tracks that are coming. That, yeah. So whenever I have a residency, and I don't have them now, but when I had residencies, for me, that would be one thing. Like, yes, of course, there's gonna be a lot of songs that you will play on a regular. Like I said, like the most important like hits. You're not going to leave them out because you know that's going to work for the crowd. You know people want to hear that stuff, but you want to keep it interesting, man. There's so much music out there. So even the delivery, even if I'm playing the exact same tracks, I'm going to make sure I'm going to give you a different delivery, different order. Then again, I'm going freestyle, so I'm going off the crowd anyway. But yeah, I will definitely play songs that I played the gig before if I'm playing for a certain audience, for sure. But it shouldn't sound exactly the same. Chris on the mix, salute to you. And hey, yeah, shit is banging. I know. But yeah, and even that, it's very personal. Like certain DJs will have like even like mini routines that they'll do a lot. Especially when they're playing in different spots. And I know DNS had that as well. But if you're in the same spot all the time, you don't want to be totally predictable, even though, sorry to say, like a large portion of the crowd doesn't really care. They don't care. And I noticed that then as well, because even with the DJs I was talking about, without naming them, like they were playing the same songs every time, I know shit is banging. I'm not even talking about the USB stick DJs, the thumb drive DJs, even though they do. I'm going back to the days when we were still playing on vinyl. Back then, even then, so they were on vinyl, but they were still playing the exact same songs every time in the same order. And to me, that's like I don't like that as a customer. So I'm there having a good time. I don't want everything to be that predictable. I love the fact if you can surprise me, even if it's the same song but a different transition or a different order, it's going to make it more fun. Otherwise, it feels to me like I'm listening to a mix CD that I can listen to at home if I want to hear the same order of tracks. So yeah, I don't have rules for that. The only thing I mostly do is I will not play the same song twice during one gig. I've only done that on a couple of occasions, and those were basically special occasions. There's been a couple of times that I had a brand new song and I played it, and people kind of lost their minds, and they were like, "What?" And we were like, "Yo." Not right after, but like a couple of tracks later, like, you know what? We're going to play this one more time. But that was not because it was the biggest hit. It was a brand new thing. And once at a special private event when the client was really like, "Hey, can you play this song for me?" And I was like, I knew I already played it. I didn't even say that. I was like, "Hey, for sure, for you, I'll do it." It was a private event. It was their event. Cool. In a club, I don't. That's why I always want to make sure that I'm at a venue at least an hour to an hour and a half before I start playing, so I can hear what the DJ before me is doing. I had a gig a couple of weeks ago, and the DJ was playing after me, came in literally 2 minutes before he had to start. It turned out to become a little bit later because we had some issues with the transition. We had to change like the equipment a little bit. But then again, when he started out, I knew for a fact he had no idea what I'd been playing. And yeah, that's just not, I don't ever want to be in that position. I've been there like once that I came in and I couldn't come earlier because there was like, I don't even remember. It was something with like an accident on the road, not us, but like on the highway. Everyone had to like stand there for like an hour. I was late to my show. In time, but late in my terms because I came in like 10 minutes before I had to start. I hate that. I came in, set up, started to played a couple of tracks. The crowd was really into it. Then I threw like a banger in, and their reaction was like lukewarm or even cold. And I didn't understand. Like, huh? This should work. And then someone told me like, yeah, the DJ played that 15 minutes ago. So yeah, I want to avoid that at all costs. So that's why you want to be there earlier. We got the one and only DJ Suicide in the building. Salute, homie. Good to see you. But that's just the thing. Like how serious do you take it? I also know that there's certain DJs out there that just take like a ton of bookings a night, and they'll show up at every gig like a couple of minutes before they have to play, and they'll run through a list of tracks that they'll play at all those sets. If that's the way they want to play, they can do that. I personally don't like doing it that way. So I'll come early whenever I can. Mixmaster G, Chris on the mix. Yeah, I see all y'all. Who's that? Lamumba says, I'm still rocking on my SRT 1000. Similar CDJ style control with the S7 mixer would be on my wish list. But for now, my SRT does the job. Moving platters are cool, but not necessary for me on a controller. Exactly. So that's the thing. Like, if this is working for you, and I mean the SRT, the 1000 is a great controller, then it's not really necessary until they come out with something like, hey, you know, that really adds something that you don't have now. And a lot of times that doesn't happen because even if there's a mixer, so for instance, with the stems, right? Okay, Pioneer on the Flex 10, they now have like specific buttons to control your stems. I don't have those buttons on, let's say, my S7 mixer. Doesn't really matter because with a simple MIDI mapping, I now map them to the performance pads and I chose one of the modes that I never use in performance mode. So that mode, if I press it now, then my pads control the stems. So I don't even need new gear, because with a lot of those options, you can just map it. All right, Suicide says, never like that. If I'm in a lineup, I'm there from the first DJ is playing. So when it's my time, I know what to play or not to play. Exactly. So like I said, like my goal is at least an hour to an hour and a half. Now, if you show up, let's say the party starts at 10 and my gig is at 1 and I show up at 11:30. I did not hear what was played in the first hour and a half. But first off, a lot of times there won't be a lot of people in at that time. And even if I have like a track that was already played 2 hours ago, that most of the time will still be enough time to get a good reaction again. And if you're dealing with DJs that even have a little bit of DJ protocol, that first DJ shouldn't be playing what a DJ should be playing during prime time. But then again, we know a lot of DJs don't follow protocol. That's why it's also important that you are there a little bit in advance. And for the newbies listening or watching, if you are the first DJ playing or if you're the warm-up DJ, you are not supposed to play stuff that's going to be played during prime time. That's what the prime time is for. And the warm-up is to warm it up, start to build a vibe. And Sui, you know this. There's plenty of time that you can walk into a club, and there's been gigs where I came in like way early, and you would have the first DJ playing. Sometimes that would even be like the light guy. The light guy would also be like their resident DJ who opens, and you walk in, there's like 2 people in the club. Doors are just open, and this DJ is playing AV8 party breaks and stuff like that, and you're just like, the first time I witnessed that, I was kind of like shocked, like what's happening. But once you have more experience, like I don't fear it, because I know I play freestyle and I'll take it in any direction I need to take it. So whenever I encounter something like that now, it just makes me laugh. But I know there's a ton of DJs out there that have a specific set that they play with a bunch of the hits, and they panic when they hear another DJ already playing something from their set, because they don't have the ability to adapt. Now, I don't like it if I have a DJ that's warming up for me and there's already quite a few people there, but they decide that they're going to take the last 20 minutes before I go on to play every hit in the book, just because they want to make some sort of statement, like, look at how I'm rocking. It's not great, because then you do have to adapt. Like, okay, this dude just played basically 40 of the hits that I was most likely going to use in my set during prime time. But if you have the musical knowledge and you brought enough music, you'll be able to adapt to that. And the thing I would do in a case like that, so if I come in and the DJ before me is playing, he's not the first DJ, like it's the second or third DJ, but you can tell, like some DJs, all of a sudden they start to ramp it up right before you have to go, but way too much, because they want to like show off, and they think showing off means playing like a ton of hits, and they bring the energy level here when they should have it here, and you're going to take it from here to there, but they go there, out of the frame, high. If I go on next, I'm going to bring them all the way down. And keep that in mind. Let that be a lesson for you. Don't let what the DJ before you does dictate how you should go, what level you should start at. Now, of course, if the party's popping and the vibe is here, you want to keep it going. But like I said, if the DJ before you takes it basically too high to a peak, you want to take it down first. Now, I'm not saying start playing slow jams, take it all the way down, but just take that foot off the gas first. Let it level out for a second so you have that option to build it up again. Because if you try to maintain the level that that last DJ kept it at, when that DJ was way too high, and you have to start that high, first off, there's no up if someone is already at that peak. So you can't peak because you're already at that peak. And you can't peak for a 2-hour set. That's not how DJing works. You're going to have like little dips in there as well. So now I'll never let a DJ push me to say like, oh, God, he went all the way there. Now I have to start there. But he also already played like a ton of the hits. Nah, that's going to trap me in a place where I don't want to be. So take that down. All right. If you are the warm-up DJ, I hear you start to build a vibe. Is there something you can do to make your warm-up memorable? Your music selection, of course. I've had a ton of warm-up sets that were like, not to sound in any way arrogant, but that were like great, like absolutely great, because I was able to take. I love warm-up sets, by the way, because warm-up sets allow you to actually have more freedom because you don't have to play the hits that you most likely will have to play during prime time. So it gives you a little bit more musical freedom. And if you can bring in a lot of the tracks that they weren't even expecting, they do know, but they weren't expecting to hear them there, that could leave it a more memorable moment. I've had that happen a ton of times during a warm-up set that I was setting the mood, of course, creating that vibe, and people were coming in, and then I start to grab those tracks that I'm like, yeah, these will fit the vibe perfectly, and I can't play those during prime time. This is the B-side no one ever plays. Bang, bring that in, and then you can hear by the reaction, like people were like, oh, wow, this track. So your music selection could make something memorable. It's not always going to happen, of course, but it could definitely be. And Mixmaster G says a warm-up is not meant to be memorable, but if you do it right, the headline DJ will remember and appreciate you to do your job right. So I'm gonna have to, I kind of agree / disagree. Like most of the time, the warm-up is not meant to be memorable. I can kind of agree with that because you can make warm-up sets great sets, and if you have a crowd that is even half into music and musicality, then they will remember. Now, if it's one of those absolutely mainstream crowds that's just in there to get drunk and hook up, and they're not really caring about music, then they're not going to remember what you do, and they just want to hear the most recognizable stuff, and they won't remember because they don't even recognize the musicality. The gigs that were memorable for me, warm-up gigs, were gigs where you have people, where you have the right people in. So people who come into a venue, and even if there's no one on the dance floor, they get on the dance floor. Those are people with the right mindset, and they will really enjoy what you do if you do it right, and they will remember. So that's why I kind of have to disagree, because if you have the right people, you can definitely make a warm-up set memorable. Unfortunately, a lot of times you can have crowds that won't appreciate what you do that much, but you still get them in the right mood, but they won't really remember it. And yes, the second part I definitely agree with. Like a headlining DJ will appreciate that. And if you have a promoter or venue owner who has some knowledge about DJing and how it should work, they will also notice, and that could definitely lead to more gigs. Because if you have a promoter who's even half knowledgeable, and you start out and you just get that energy way too high, play all the hits, they're probably not going to get you for that warm-up set again, and they're certainly not going to also get you for the headlining gig. All right, do you tone down? You're scratching, tone down, I guess. Do you tone down your scratching when playing out based on the event, or do you do your thing regardless? No, I always make sure I watch the event. I would say, like, when I'm playing out, doing like normal gigs in clubs, like cutting and scratching is definitely not my main focus. I do it more here during live streams than at actual club gigs. but I incorporate it into it. But a lot of times it's subtle. So for instance, what I do during the live streams a lot as well, I'm doing my transition. And then maybe for let's say I have an 8-bar transition. I bring that new track in. And maybe after 4 bars, so half of the hook, half of the transition, I start to scratch with the outgoing track. And then I'm just scratching for 4 bars. And then the incoming track, the verse starts. So I stop. So that's just 4 bars of just funky, subtle scratching. So I'm never turning it into like a scratch showcase when I'm playing out. Unless I have like I want to make my start very noticeable. And that's also a great way for me to stop what the last DJ was doing. And I'll start out with a track that is a hit, but instead of just bringing it in, I'll start cutting up that beginning just to get their attention. Not too long, but then bring it in. Jay Valeria says, do you agree the warm-up is the most difficult thing to do? Yes. To get people on the dance floor for the next DJ to pick it up from there. 100%. The reason also why I say it, because I've seen a lot of DJs who can't do it because they believe that they have to play popular songs / hits in order to DJ the right way, when that's the opposite of what you should be doing, especially when a venue is just opening, people are just coming in. It's not party time yet. First off, the audience isn't there yet. Then, unless you have, like I said earlier, people who are actually just really free and open and they'll start to dance right away. If you don't have a crowd like that, chances are they first need to get like their drinks on, socialize a little bit before they even hit the dance floor, because they'll wait until it's crowded enough before they even dare to jump on the dance floor. During that time, it's still your focus to entertain them by playing tracks that get them in that right vibe. So they should be kind of mellow, but they also need to have a certain level of energy in there. And as more people come in and hopefully people hit the dance floor, you want to slightly level that up, add some more energy over time. So yeah, that's definitely a more difficult thing. But I love it because, like I said, it also gives you more freedom to play tracks that you can't play during prime time. Trevin Savage says, if you're an open format DJ, how long do you like to play? How long do you like the playlist should be for each genre? So for me, that's difficult to answer because I don't make like playlists. I have nothing prepared unless maybe selected a bunch of songs that I might want to play that night. But how long I play a certain style, I've done gigs where I can play anything. And I can take it from hip-hop to R&B to dancehall to New Jack Swing to some UK garage to old ska track to whatever. I go off the crowd. I'll have main music that I'll play the most. In my case, it'll be hip-hop and R&B. Hip-hop and R&B is the main thing. But I'll venture out in different areas. And if I, for instance, try some dancehall and I see it's not really catching on because it's not that crowd, then I'll only play for a couple of tracks, move right out. If I want to do some UK garage and all of a sudden I see I'm getting like that great reaction, I'll play it a little bit longer, then go back and keep that in mind for like, okay, I'm going to play a little bit more later on. So I really go off the crowd. I'm watching what they react to, and that's going to help me to dictate which way I'm going to go and how much I'm going to play of a certain genre. Given your current position in the industry now and what you know, what would be some things you would tell upcoming DJs to avoid and embrace in terms of habits and practices to succeed at DJing? I think that's a really hard question for me to answer because I'm not sure if the journey for a new DJ is going to be the same as it was for DJs that came up in my era. I'm not that in tune with how new promoters approach stuff. And again, I'm here in Amsterdam. I'm dealing with the Netherlands and how people do things here. And even when it comes to that, I'm not totally in tune with what they're doing because I'm not playing that many club gigs. But that's going to be totally different in different, even parts of the country, but definitely in different countries. So it's really hard for me to say. I came up in a time where you were just practicing at home, improving your skills, make mixtapes to get your sound out there, give out mixtapes, sell mixtapes. It's a little bit different now, I think. That's a really hard question. I like the question, but it's really hard for me to answer. And the funny thing is, I was in the car yesterday and I was actually thinking about this, that I want to talk to some people in the industry now, brand new DJs, just to talk about their come up and how it might be different from how we did it. And also promoters to see what they are looking for and how they find new DJs. So I think this is one I have to get back to when I know more. But at the end of the day, if you're living in whatever country and you're in a specific city and you want to get gigs, I do think that meeting people, networking, getting your name out is always going to be part of it. Meaning, if there's venues in your town, you should be at those venues to hear what they're playing. And if certain venues play the style you play, you want to make sure that the DJs, the promoters know you. You want to make sure you have music. We had mixtapes. Now you should have music online. And that doesn't really change. You need to network, meet people. Now, online is the option to also meet people and get the word out, but never stop the actual networking and meeting people. But I need that is something, like I said, I'm kind of out of that. I still do some gigs, but not that much. I'm not in the party scene anymore. I don't have that much desire to be in that scene anymore and play a lot of gigs a week. So I am not sure about that one. Not the answer you want to hear, but yeah, I need to give that some more, not thought, but actually research to see, like, hey, what's happening now? How are new DJs getting into the industry and getting gigs? Back in the 80s in Chicago, the first night, Ron Hardy played Future's Acid Tracks at the Music Box. He played it at least 4 times. Ron Hardy had the heart and the guts to play something like that and to play it first. Yeah, he trained the people in the club that night to like the song, and it worked. 4th time he played it, they lost their minds. I actually saw a guy doing a handstand. Yeah, and I can totally see that. Like, if you're playing something that's new and different, you might want to repeat that, especially if you see that the crowd is giving a reaction to it, because they're also like, what is this? Hit him with it again, for sure. All right. It is, it's about that time, and I'm happy to say that I'm on schedule in the chat as well. All the questions have been answered, I believe. So that's great. So I'm going to give y'all a shout out. I want to thank y'all for tuning in. I'm going to be here every Wednesday for all your DJ related questions. Sometimes I can answer. Sometimes I'm not sure. Sometimes I just don't know, but I'll always try to add some value. And I'll be here on Sunday with the Sunday sessions. Before that, we have some different stuff going on here. Like I said, back to doing a couple of band shows. So that's going to be fun as well. But I'm going to be here online on Sunday for the Sunday sessions and back on Wednesday with Share the Knowledge. That's it for now. Follow me on IG if you want to know what's happening, and for all the rest of my info, djtlm.com. All right. See y'all again. And yes, indeed, Mixmaster G. If you want to check out Mixmaster G's AMA every Tuesday at 7 p.m. Also Amsterdam time. Thank y'all for tuning in. Right? See you next time. Peace, 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 peace.